Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm gonna be doing my first ever music review since, well, my first video ever. That was about 6 years ago. Back then I was a different person. So in this video we're gonna be looking at Eaten Back to Life, the debut album of death metal icons, Cannibal Corpse. So before we get into the pros and cons of this album, I wanted to talk a little bit about the band's history. So these guys got together in 1988 and they released their first demo by 1989. It's called Cannibal Corpse. And the 5 tracks on this demo were all re-recorded for this album. And they sounded even better on the album. The original lineup consisted of frontman Chris Barnes, who is now the frontman of 6 Feet Under, Jack Owen, the lead guitarist, who is now also in 6 Feet Under, Bob Rousset, who I think he was a rhythm guitarist. He stuck around for about 3 albums, I believe. And 2 of the founding members who are still in the band to this day, Alex Webster, the bass player, and the drummer, Paul, however you pronounce his last name. And even with all the lineup changes, these guys have been very consistent throughout the decades. So let's get into their debut album. So firstly, there's the album cover. Wow. I mean, you pretty much know what you're gonna get into just from the cover. In fact, this band has a history with violent album covers. The cover for this album resulted in the album being banned in various countries, including Germany, until the ban was revoked in 2006. But hey, this is death metal after all. I mean, what did you expect, Disneyland? So what about the actual music itself? Is it any good? Of course it is. Why not? So there are 11 tracks on the album, and I enjoyed all of them. And fun fact, this was my first ever death metal album, so you can only imagine what it was like for me. Pretty mind-blowing. Now, consider this to be an album where the band is still finding itself, because out of all of their albums, it's probably the thrashiest. You know, it does have somewhat of a thrash metal element to it because they hadn't fully developed their sound yet. Alex Webster, you know, for his first Cannibal Corpse album, he was really good on the bass, and he gets a few moments to shine here and there. The drumming was so fast on this album that it was almost impossible for me to keep up with on the first listen. And if this is going to be your first ever experience with death metal, you're going to have that problem too. Well, it's not really a problem. It's actually kind of fun to get lost in the drumming. Chris Barnes' vocals were fantastic on this album. They're among his more high-pitched vocals, because on later albums he would transition into low-pitched growling and stuff like that. The guitar solos from Jack Owen are used sparingly so that when they show up, they're very effective. The songs also have a lot of abrupt tempo changes. It may be jarring for some people at first, but when you revisit the album, you'll get used to that. The album is perfectly paced at just over 36 minutes. You know, most of the songs are around 2 to 3 minutes each. Some of them are shorter than that, but the first song and the last song are both 5 minutes each, which I thought was perfect. Because this is their first album and it was made in the early 90s, it's probably the most raw sounding album of their career compared to what they put out now. So if you like raw death metal or even raw thrash metal, you'll enjoy this album. Another thing is that when I first heard this album, because it was my first death metal album, every song kinda sounded the same. I hate to say that now because it's difficult to create a sense of variety with death metal, but all the songs have some distinct qualities to them. And at the very least, it does feel like one consistent experience. The last song on the album, Buried in the Backyard, is 5 minutes because the first 2 minutes are, you know, this long instrumental intro. It's fast and it's thrashy, but if you find yourself getting bored, you might start skipping through it, but upon revisiting the track, you'll enjoy it. Trust me. Now, I can't make a Cannibal Corpse video without talking about the lyrics. This band has written some of the most brutal, graphic, gory, most unrestrained lyrics in the history of death metal, which has attracted a lot of controversy just like the album covers, and they're inspired by the band's love of horror movies. I mean, the things being described in the songs are like something straight out of a horror movie. If I had to choose my favorite track, it would be The Undead Will Feast. It used to be Shredded Humans, but The Undead Will Feast, that one quickly became my favorite after re-listening to it for the last couple of days. And even though I enjoy all of these songs, my least favorite would have to be Rotting Head. I don't know, if I had to pick a least favorite. And the album was actually dedicated to Alfred Packer. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He was the first ever American cannibal. Yeah. What are you doing? Stop right there. There's nothing wrong with this album, it's flawless, it's perfect. So yeah, if you want to get into Cannibal Corpse or just death metal in general, then make a start with this album. And that's it. That's the review. I'm not really good at reviewing music albums, but I am trying. Next time we're gonna look at their second album, Butchered at Birth. And yes, that's an even more gruesome album cover. So, thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like the video, share it and subscribe, and hit the notification icon. Be safe during this time, and I'll see you soon.